Once we've decided what we want to list the property at, it's good to give the seller a calculation of what their closing costs will be. Under Daily Functions, you'll find a tab called Calculators. When you go into Calculators, there's different ways you can use this system. What we're going to use today is the Closing Cost Estimator. And I'm going to create a new file. And this is for the folks that live on that property I just did the market analysis for. I'm going to put their information in here. The system will save it for me. I'd like to do this calculation based on $90,000 as a sales price. Let's assume we're listing the property fairly quickly here and that maybe by the end of the week we have a contract, which if in a regular everyday market will close about 30 days later. Let's call it end of September for a closing. The property taxes, this system will calculate how much the seller owes, because remember, the property tax bill is going to come due and payable long after the seller has sold the property. So what happens is at closing, we collect from the seller taxes for the days of the year they actually own this property. I go back to the tax records, and under 2011 final, it tells me that the taxes are $939.26. And then the system will do the calculation for us. There's no special assessments out here. If there was, you could certainly put that in there. The homeowners association fee information isn't as important here because we don't do a lot of prepaid homeowners association stuff like we do on property taxes. When the seller has a loan against the property, you can put that information in here. Let's say in this case that this seller owes $80,000. And they've got a note at 5.25, which back when they would have bought this house was completely reasonable. So if we put that information in here, this calculation will tell us very accurately, not absolutely perfectly down to the penny, but it comes pretty darn close. Go down here, you'll see here the tax prorations. So if the taxes are $939.26 for the entire year, if we're going to close on September 28th, the seller owes $699.23 for the taxes for the portion of the year that they lived in the property. We're going to charge this seller a 6% commission and see how it calculated it over there to the right. Then if there's any of these items that the seller will be paying for, if there's any prepayment penalties, if there's any other fees at the bank, we could put those in there. And the biggest part is to go down here. Under title charges, you'll see that the system automatically calculates those for us. That's based on industry averages for our area. So those are all input in there. If you know exactly the number because you've called your title rep, you can put the exact number in there. For today's purposes, we're just going to use the ones that are provided by the system. The system also puts in the fact that the seller is going to pay for a recording fee. In our county, there are no stamps needed, so I usually take that out. If the seller was going to have to pay for a survey, a pest inspection, septic system inspection, flood insurance inspection, anything like that, we'd put that in here. A lot of times I estimate that the seller might have to pay at least $200 in the HOA transfer fees. And one of the other things I like to put in here is the Reconveyance and Tracking Fee. This is when the seller has a mortgage on the property that gets paid off at closing. The title company will send the money to the lender, but they want to make sure that they get the lien release back so they can issue the final title policy. In order to do that, they track it, and they charge a little extra to do that. Title companies charge anywhere between $80 and $100 for that service. So you'll see here, the system has now told us that the total closing costs on this transaction, if they sell it for $90,000, is $6,500 and some odd cents. Go up, back up to the top. This line tells us that if they get a transaction and a deal from a buyer at $90,000 and they pay the fees out below to title and to us through escrow, they will net $2,400. Now I can go in and I can print this, and I can take it with me to my listing appointment.